let's double check we are connected.
I'll just confirm.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us at the Combined Authority meeting today. Before we start the meeting, I just want to say a few words about the Prime Minister's decision to cancel HS2 during his speech to the Conservative Party conference last week. I hope you'll have seen that I worked really closely with mayors of both Conservative and Labour mayors across the country to oppose these plans. But unfortunately, our appeal fell on deaf ears. The decision to scrap HS2 has enormous consequences for our region's economy, and the Prime Minister has broken more than a decade of consensus on the infrastructure needs of the nation and created uncertainty, which is the last thing businesses in West Yorkshire and investors need in the current climate. The Prime Minister said earlier this week that alternative investments set out in his Network North document were merely illustrative of what could be delivered. This simply is not good enough. Bradford needs the new through station in the city centre, linking it to the main line. West Yorkshire needs a mass transit system. But we can't wait for the 2030s for the promise of money that may, let's be frank, never come. So Councillor Hinchcliffe and myself made it very clear to Mark Harper, the Transport Secretary, that we need these investments guaranteed, and we'll continue the work we're doing on these projects to deliver the business cases and other approvals we need to get spades in the ground as soon as possible to deliver for the people of West Yorkshire. But other infrastructure needs don't go away. We still need to improve and enhance connectivity and capacity east to west across the north. Last week's announcements do little for that by not addressing the bottlenecks at Leeds Station and Manchester Piccadilly. Our need for better connectivity and capacity between Leeds and Sheffield and on to Birmingham remains. There were only more questions rather than answers raised on this last week. What we need is a proper integrated plan for rail infrastructure across the country, developed alongside mayors and local leaders who best understand the needs of their economies and communities. And I will work with anybody to bring this forward. I'm delighted that the leader of the Labour Party has agreed to work with mayors and our teams on this, and I await a similar invitation from this government. I intend to write to the Prime Minister on these points on behalf of the people of West Yorkshire. So, thank you for listening, and let's move us on to apologies. Ian, any apologies?
No, there are no apologies. Everyone is here.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Any members have any interest they wish to declare on any item on the agenda? No, thank you. And then moving on to item 3. I'm not aware there are any items today that are exempt. Therefore, we won't need to exclude the press and public at any time during this meeting. Moving on to item 4, minutes of West Yorkshire Combined Authority meeting 28th of September this year. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes? Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a matter of accuracy. At the last meeting, I asked for and was given an assurance that the public consultation that was launched this week, would be done in a balanced way with all options to be considered. And I'd just like that to be recorded in the minutes, please, because it isn't reflected there at the minutes.
Thank you so much for that. I'm sure we can amend those minutes. Thank you, Ian. So with that taken into account, are we content to confirm these as an accurate record? Thank you. Okie doke, item 5. I am really delighted to have this item on the agenda. It's a conclusion of a huge amount of hard work with many different partners over the last couple of years, and the delivery, finally, of one of my 10 manifesto pledges. And the report sets out how we will deliver the West Yorkshire Fair Work Charter, which aims to improve the quality of jobs across the region, helping us to ensure that everyone can benefit from fair, just good work and deliver that inclusive economy we all want. Can I personally thank the steering group, chaired by Kate Hainsworth, all their hard work in seeing this through. It's taken longer than we'd hoped because I genuinely wanted to get this right. It wasn't just something to put on a shelf or be a tick box. It had to be something that absolutely delivered change. And what we've developed is based on the principle of nudging employers in an approach that come in the waters lovely to improve the quality of work with supportive community of like-minded businesses before going on a journey of improvement which we can all support. And I'm so grateful to all the businesses and the trade unions who contributed to our thinking throughout the process. And I'm pleased that both employers and unions have endorsed the charter we have developed. I'm delighted also to say that we've got over 40 early adopters, and they've signed up already across a range of businesses across sizes and sectors. So assuming, I'm hopeful, the charter will be approved today, we will formally launch it next month in Bradford alongside some of those early adopters. May I pass over to Councillor James Lewis as Chair of our Business, Economy and Innovation Committee before passing on to Felix. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and again, I think we all welcome this charter coming forward. It's been a big piece of work, and I think it's been really positive that it has been that it has involved such a broad range of partners as you mentioned, and it's certainly something that I would encourage everybody to get behind and make sure now, when we agree this morning, that it becomes part of our work across West Yorkshire and continue that partnership approach.
Thank you. And because so many of our businesses are SMEs, we absolutely needed to bring them with us and to listen to their concerns. And I'm so pleased that 40 already have signed up, and hopefully this will be the beginning of a wider community across our region. So, Felix.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I couldn't have put it better myself. The paper in front of you today is really meant, one, to update you on the work that we've done today and where we are with it, and to seek your endorsement and approval, first of the charter itself, which is added as an appendix to the paper, and also that the Combined Authority Board agrees to be an early signatory to the charter. It would be remiss of us if we did not do that, so hopefully the board is happy to agree to that. I won't go through the whole paper, but except to say we went through this really to pick up some of the key issues in our economy, which we know that this work will help. It will not solve all the problems, but it will help get us closer to some of the key challenges that have been addressed, and which the West Yorkshire Plan itself sets out to draw attention to and to help us address. So we know in our economy there are way too many people who are engaged in poor quality jobs that do not pay enough. Too many people suffering from health and mental well-being challenges from work, and too many people in the working age who are not able to engage at all in work. This charter gives us another tool to be able to address that, working with employers. The idea with this, having learned from what other combined authorities have done, is to encourage and work alongside employers instead of shaming some businesses and saying that you're not part of this, so we're not going to talk to you. It's instead to open up a conversation, communication, a dialogue with businesses, and to ask the question, if you're not doing this, how can we work together to get there? And if you are, then it's an opportunity for us to celebrate that together and to make sure that we can get the word out to get more and more businesses to sign up to this. So as the mayor's already said, 40 businesses have already indicated to us that they want to be part of this. We are confident that after the meeting today, when the news gets out, that number will go up very quickly. The charter itself focuses on 5 main areas: opportunity, security, well-being, employee voice, and fulfillment. And the idea is that we will review this after implementing it in the first year to see how well we're doing, pick up where we might be falling short, and to have another go at it to make sure we're able to achieve our objectives. So I commend this paper to you, and hopefully you're in the position to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. If I could add my thanks to Mayors Steve Rotherham and Andy Burnham, who came to Bradford at the initial launch, because here in the north we want to say to employers across the north that if you are an exploitative employer, you are not welcome in the north. And if you work in the north, you will be protected by your leaders to get good, fair work. So they were there at the beginning, and Bradford University were really involved as well. So thank you to them. So are we happy to endorse and approve the Fair Work Charter to proceed to launch? We are happy. And that the combined authority becomes an early signatory to the Charter? Sorry?
Can we have a question?
Of course, yes. Apologies, Rebecca.
Thank you. Just wanted to check how this is going to be rolled out to businesses. How are you going to communicate to people about the Charter and getting involved with it? And under 2.5, it does offer support to businesses who want to take the first steps on the Charter. So who will be providing the support, and how will that be funded and provided to them?
Thank you. Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. To take the second one first, the Combined Authority has approved a bit of funding for us to implement this. So we will be working with partners who in the first year, we will have an external partner who will procure to work with us, and they will offer that support to all businesses who want to sign up to this, but who might feel there are some barriers in the way or any further work that they need to do to be able to get there. In terms of how we get the information out there, we use all our social media channels and our website and all our events, but also in the work that we do, we engage with businesses regularly. So this will be one of the things that we talk to all the businesses and all employers that we engage with. And as the mayor said, if there are businesses who are saying actually they do not want to sign up to this, then I think there's an honest conversation that we need to have as to whether these are the businesses that we want to be engaged with or not.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of points. So, first of all, can you tell me how compliant we are currently as a combined authority and as constituent councils, and what are the metrics that we're going to be measuring to tell us whether this is successful and having an impact?
Felix.
So the Charter itself, under each of the 5 areas of focus, picks out a bit more detail. And so for each one, there is a metric as to whether the organization has pays the real living wage or not. You know, there's a set of metrics for each of them. So that's what that's what we will be looking at when we engage in conversations with businesses. As I said at the beginning, the idea is not really a pass or fail. It's securing commitments from businesses to go on the journey with us together to work on each of the 5 areas that are set out in the Charter. So we're not looking to say you've passed, you failed. Instead, we're seeking a commitment from businesses to say, do you want to do this with us? Are you in a position to commit to doing these things with us or not? And it's only if a business is saying absolutely not that we'll have to have a bit of a conversation. To reassure you, in all the engagement we've done, it's very clear that most businesses are actually doing a lot of this already. And we are probably maybe a bit late to that party. Many businesses are doing this and are very proud to share that they are doing this. And we're looking to actually be more positive about this and to celebrate that and to build a coalition of fair and purposeful businesses in West Yorkshire instead of sort of dwelling on the negative of if you don't do this, then that will happen to you.
I think that's a really, it's well framed, Felix, but I think I've just been speaking to Ben, and I think there is something about this that we could do with a bit more information that I'll ask Ben, would you mind bringing to the CA in December some analysis of how we're all doing? I I think that would be certainly us as an organisation, because of course we are police and crime as well, and also we work with other companies. So I think just to get a sort of temperature test, it has been in the forefront of our minds, but just for clarity's sake, I think would be good. Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I think that's welcome. I'm grateful for that. I think it would be useful just to have a baseline of where we think we are as well across the region in terms of how many people specifically do we think are in low-paid jobs and how many businesses do we think are not compliant. So it's easy over time for us to see, so this is having an impact.
Yeah.
And the other point I wanted to make as a small business operator sat around, I don't know if I'm alone in that, sat around the table, but I'd like to think my business does this as practice. What you sometimes find in it's a very small business, it can be difficult and onerous to go through the task of demonstrating it. And in terms of support that Councillor Poulsen referred to, I think it would be useful to put a bit more flesh on the bones to reassure, particularly very small businesses, that probably in most cases are going above and beyond, that actually they can easily demonstrate that it isn't an onerous task to be able to say that they're doing the things that they're doing anyway, and sometimes these things can end up being a bit cumbersome.
And I think your experience is very valuable, and a voice that we heard from small businesses that if it's too onerous, we're not going to be involved. So we have made it as light touch as possible, and that you can be part of this enlightened group if you are hitting some of the markers with the ambitions to do more. Because I know that particularly on salaries, that was very hard for small businesses because they were so anxious about the future. So we've had to do a lot of reassurance in that piece as well. But I do hope you're going to be signed up and will join the happy band of businesses as we go forward. Councillor Scullion.
Thank you, and thank you for that elucidation, Mayor. Absolutely agree in terms of the reframing of the tone of this paper. I would take issue with Councillor Lamb. I don't think we want language about compliance or non-compliance. Actually, the way in which this is framed is very much about that journey. And I know that most of the businesses in Calderdale are SMEs. We've got a lot of startups. This is about improvement and aspiration, really. Let's leave the language about compliance and non-compliance out of it entirely.
I think because the trap you can fall into is that you end up with all the big businesses that are doing everything right, being quite happy to be, we can sign all these boxes, tick all these boxes, and then you end up with just a small cohort of people and you don't change the landscape. This is for us to change the landscape where we can make sure that we support businesses to do the right thing for the workforce and for themselves, because you'll know as somebody who runs a business, the more progressive you are, you have better retention, you're more attractive to people when it comes to recruitment, you're more able to withstand economic shocks, etc., etc. So I'm hoping that SMEs across West Yorkshire will feel that they want to be part of this family to do the right thing, and we will help them on that journey. Any further thoughts? Thank you. Okay, so I did assume everybody was behind it, and I was too previous, and I missed out your questions, so apologies on that. So we did get the endorsement and approval of the charter to proceed to launch. We had the approval there. Are we happy for the combined authority to become an early signatory to the charter? Yes. Yes, lovely, thank you. And Ben is going to take away that ask about coming back with a lie of the land of where we are now and where we'd like to aspire to going forward. Okie doke. So moving on to another exciting item on the agenda, Mass Transit Vision 2040 adoption. This has been amended following the outcome of the statutory consultation process, and if approved today, it's going to be adopted as a supplementary document to the local transport plan. I mentioned earlier about the Prime Minister's Network North plan, which included, annoyingly, promise for money for Leeds tram. How many times have we had to say, this is not a Leeds tram, this is a West Yorkshire mass transit, because it will connect towns and cities across our region and form part of a multimodal transport network, including bus, rail, active travel and mass transit. This is not just about Leeds, this is about all of us. Secondly, while I do welcome the funding promise made by the Prime Minister, it is only a promise. The details suggested we would receive 500 million as a down payment in 2027, with a further 2 billion coming in 2032 and beyond. I've made it very clear to government ministers our plans are much more ambitious than that, and we're working to a timeline where a much larger sum of money is released to us in 2027 than has currently been suggested. Work is progressing at pace and we cannot afford to slacken that pace. I am intent on delivering this as soon as possible. So now can I pass to Councillor Hinchcliffe as Chair of the Transport Committee, and then I'll move on to Simon, our Executive Director of Transport, for further comment. Susan.
Yeah, really pleased to see this paper on the agenda this morning and at the adoption phase. It's really positive news as mass transit is transformational for our region and we've needed it for so many years. This is obviously the latest step to achieving that. It is a long-term project. It's not something that can be delivered tomorrow. So obviously, but this is huge transformational stuff. Precisely the reason we got mayoral devolution in the first place. And I'm just really pleased to see this progress to the next stage. So over to Simon, I think.
Thank you, and I'll just very briefly add, with thanks to Luke and his team, that we've now run 2 waves of consultation on the vision. We're very confident that the vision now reflects the priorities of the combined authority and all of those who've taken part in our consultation. And of course, it's incredibly important when we're on such a significant journey as the mass transit programme that we're very clear in terms of our priorities for the outset, and that's why I recommend the adoption of the vision today, so that we have that clear statement to build on going forwards.
Thank you. Any comments or thoughts? Questions? Yes, Councillor Pulse.
Yeah, it was just on the statutory consultees. They seem to be quite difficult to get them all to respond. I'm not expecting a 100% response rate. Obviously went out again to try and get some more. How many were actually who haven't responded at all do we have now? And what can we learn about this engagement going forward? Because obviously we will have to engage with statutory consultees throughout this process. What can we learn going forward?
I think it's a very fair question. I think we're confident now. We've set out a number of important comments that we received in particular, that we've been exhaustive in our efforts to draw in comments from statutory consultees. They are, of course, statutory consultees, and it is at their choice to take part in the consultation. I think we have captured by far the vast majority of those consultees and worked very hard to promote the consultation. Of course, if we look at the first round of consultation, the volume of public response that we secured, I think, is testament to that, and therefore I'm confident that those consultees with material views on the vision have had a very good opportunity to give you those views, and that we've summarised those accurately.
Please, Luke.
A very fair question from the councillor. Thank you, councillor. Yeah, we made an extreme effort with the statutory consultees. Many of the ones who decided not to respond did so with the explanation of why they were not responding, because they didn't feel it was appropriate to respond, it wasn't directly relevant to them, and so forth. So it wasn't just a question of us firing things out to them and then nothing coming back. So there was a fairly good picture. One of the things we've taken away from it is perhaps the list of statutory consultees needs to be worked on a bit, so we match it more closely to what this is really all about.
Thank you. Any further comments? Super. Can we agree the recommendation for the CA to consider the draft Mass Transit Vision 2040 as amended following the outcome of the statutory consultation process and to adopt it as a supplementary document to the local transport plan? We can all agree. That is such great news. Thank you all so much. Moving on to mass transit approach to placemaking and design philosophy. So this item is about how the system will work within the places it's designed to connect. This is central to planning an effective and efficient transport system. And mass transit is absolutely about people and places. And the starting point must be really on understanding how mass transit will integrate with our communities and act as a stimulus for regeneration and development of lovely communities and places to live. As you would expect, the placemaking approach seeks to ensure safety and also inclusion is at the heart of the design by putting people first and at the centre of our decisions. This means streets and public realm are well defined, that they're welcoming, safe, inclusive, and of course, accessible to all. These documents have been developed in consultation with officers from all 5 local authorities, and we're committed to continuing to work in partnership with all to deliver the project. Could I now pass on to Councillor Hinchcliffe before handing over to Simon for further comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I really obviously welcome this document. I think it just highlights, as you just said then, that transport is not just about getting A to B and the journey time, passenger numbers. It is about what it does to the place where the station is, where the stop is, and it is transformational for those places in that it encourages economic activity, housing to be built on brownfield land around stations, around transport hubs, and this document just strengthens that. And I think because we're devolved, we can spend the time, we know our communities to be able to outline this kind of document. It's something that couldn't be done at national level because they just don't know our place as much, but they'd be well advised to look at transport as part of regeneration rather than just seeing it as getting people from A to B. So it's a bit of a common bugbear of mine. So there's been a lot of depth and breadth gone into this document in terms of research, working with local authorities to get the right tone and the right feel for our places and linking in with our local plans and what we all want to see. So hopefully this brings it all together and really will be a useful document for us to build and attract investment going forward. And I'll hand over to Simon and the team.
I think you've said most of it really. The central point is that the Mass Transit Investment Programme is a very long-term investment in the fabric of our places. And we recognise that, and we want to be absolutely clear from the outset that we have that clear understanding, and that will very much drive our work. So we've set out within the placemaking approach 4 design principles, people first, very, very sensitive and understanding of both the diversity of the user community that we want to be able to attract onto a future system, but also the diversity of the neighbourhoods that we will be serving and planning a system through. That we have the very highest environmental standards and take our environmental responsibilities very seriously and very clearly. That our approach is driven by the integrated transport approaches that you referred to before, Mayor, and we drive that principle of a better connected place, and that fundamentally we celebrate West Yorkshire through the approach that we take. We know that these levels of investment can drive up pride in our places, and we want to be able to capitalise on that to the fore. As Councillor Hinchcliffe quite rightly pointed out, that means that we have done extensive work with a whole range of teams in the 5 authorities to make sure that we reflect the diversity, and we will continue to work with those teams going forwards. And I think the final point that I would stress is that all of those 5 principles will continue to also be driven by our desire to maximise the safety of users, not simply whilst travelling on the future system, but as they travel to and from the future system. so that again we can ensure that nobody feels excluded from the opportunity ahead of us. So I recommend the adoption of the approaches that are set out here, and then request that we bring a further, more detailed design guide forward in due course, which we will work on closely with local authority partners, so that we then have all of the right principles at all levels of granularity in place before we start to move to engagement with communities on our proposals.
Thank you so much. And if I could just add, if people are minded to have a look at Manchester's mass transit, you can see how that has unlocked over the years new communities and new developments. And on our trip to Dublin, it was extraordinary to see how mass transit that went into a wasteland in the first instances has now been developed into the most extraordinary boutique hotel and restaurants and lovely apartments alongside that mass transit route. So I am really hopeful and excited about the opportunities that mass transit is going to give all of our partners, but also being able to be there right at the beginning to make sure that inclusion is a priority. You'll know that we did the research on safer parks, that women's safety is often an afterthought. We are in a really privileged position that we can put all our values right at the beginning of the design of this mass transit that is going to be the most efficient, the most inclusive, the most attractive, hopefully in Europe, and no pressure on anyone. But I'm very excited about the approach to placemaking. I think it's really important. Jane, Councillor Scullion.
Thank you. I noticed the officer is turning a little pale when you talked about pressure to be best in Europe, so I hope you become. This report came to the Climate Committee, and what was interesting was people found it rather startling in a refreshing sort of way, not in a negative way, because this was a report that was about that combination of transport and place, really. And I have to say the committee were very, very positive about it, really, in terms of the overall approach to thinking about place rather than, just big sheds, where transport begins and ends, but actually thinking about not only structures, but how people use their place, really. And I'm pleased to say that Historic England were particularly enthusiastic about this approach in terms of going forward for many years in terms of thinking about mass transit and how we use our places, really. So very positive from the Climate Committee.
Thank you for that feedback. That's really good to hear. Any further comments? Right, okay, let's go through to the recommendations. That we approve the proposal to adopt the approach to placemaking design philosophy as a tool for influencing the mass transit route development activity and stimulating wider place-based opportunities. All happy to approve? Lovely, thank you. And that we note the intention to prepare an updated design guide prior to the commencement of the next stage of route design, the feasibility design, and this will be presented to the Combined Authority for approval in due course. Super, thank you. Moving on to item 8, investment priority 3, creating great places and accelerated infrastructure. This is about our Housing Accelerator Fund programme, a £3.2 million programme to fast track housing projects across the region, because in this region we are builders, not blockers. And the funding will help support the progress of sites across West Yorkshire, including Bradford City Village, Castleford Housing Zone, Dewsbury Riverside, Brigg House and Leeds City Centre. It'll go some way to help achieving my manifesto commitment on affordable housing, which we remain absolutely focused on despite the challenging economic environment. We began my term at the tail end of the pandemic and have been deeply affected by skyrocketing inflation caused by the government's disastrous budget just over a year ago. But it's funding like this that's helping to bring sites forward and ensure that housing still keeps being developed. So we've developed, and I'm really pleased to be one of only 3 in the country, a strategic partnership with Homes England to further progress housing delivery, but still frustrating that we have to compete with other regions to secure their funding. So I'm making the case to government we should have an allocation from their affordable homes programme just for us here in West Yorkshire, and that it should be devolved. A similar idea was announced by the Labour Party in Liverpool earlier this week. For more detail on this and the delegation containing the paper to the Climate, Energy and Environment Committee, can I pass to Councillor Jeffrey before handing over to Liz Hunter, our Director of Policing, Environment and Place. So, Denise.
Thank you very much, Tracy and Mayor. I think you've covered so much of it, but the place board have really shaped this. As we've working with Liz and officers, we really were determined to move forward with this. It matters so much to everyone, and as I say, you've covered what we were doing, but the committee were so impassioned about moving forward. The private sector that were on our committee fully endorsed what we were doing, and I think this is a great way forward, and the committee wanted to bring it here so that we could endorse and support it.
Thank you, and of course it is urgent because we do need to continue and ratchet up these projects. Liz.
Thank you very much. So just to provide the layer of detail in terms of what's being asked for today. So the total value of the scheme is 3.2 million, as you've said, Mayor, and this really is about the early stages of the work needed to bring forward housing sites, working with each of the local authorities in those sites. And as you also mentioned, Mayor, really important partnership with Homes England through the Strategic Place Partnership, and this money will be very much focused on those areas that you as the Combined Authority approved earlier this year in terms of those priority areas with Homes England. So we're looking today for you to approve the totality of that money so that we can continue to work on the projects coming forward. The second ask in the paper is that on the Net Zero Regional Accelerator Fund. This is a fund that is already in place and it funds things like, feasibility, so early stage work on schemes like solar schemes, energy from waste, etc. So what we're looking for today is that the team are still working on this proposal and it's going through our assurance, and we'd like it to be delegated to Climate Committee, chaired by Councillor Scullion, for the Climate Committee to look at that and scrutinise it and make the decision as to whether to allocate additional funding to that programme to enable more schemes to come forward through that programme. So two things to be delegated, sorry, two approvals, one Housing Accelerator Fund, and then the second one to be delegated to Climate Committee.
Thank you. Any comments on these suggestions? If I might add that one of the challenges is planners. We can't find people being attracted to planning. So I've asked the team to look at how we can use some of our adult education budget to try and focus on recruiting planners in the way that we did with bus drivers and telecoms engineers. So potentially we can try and solve some of this problem and make planning an attractive option for young people in West Yorkshire. No comments, so let's go to the approval. So the Housing Accelerator Fund, this is a single scheme asking for delegation from the Combined Authority to the Climate, Energy and Environment Committee. Are we happy to approve? Thank you. And the Net Zero Region Accelerator, we're approving to progress through the assurance process with full approvals for the Climate Authority's funding contribution for delivery delegation to the Chief Executive to determine the projects within an approval for future assurance pathways and approval routes. And the detailed recommendations are set out in the report. We're happy to approve the Net Zero item. Thank you. Moving on. Everybody's happy with that?
Sorry, Liz, you want to come back?
So just to be really clear, it's just the other way around. So delegation to the Net Zero Accelerator to Climate Committee and approval for the Housing Revenue Fund today. So it's basically, as you said, but just the other way around, if that's all right, just for clarity for the minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's do that again. It's actually written the wrong way around in my papers, so thank you. We're happy to approve the money, the £3 million. Great, and we're happy to delegate Net Zero to the committee. Great stuff, thank you. Thank you for that clarity, Liz. Okay, moving on to budget and funding. So I'm pleased to bring this paper forward and support our local authorities at a time of extreme financial pressure. We are proposing refunding 51.148 million from our West Yorkshire Plus Transport Fund reserve to our 5 local authorities. We remain committed to delivering the £1 billion Transport Fund in full over the coming years. Can I pass over to Angela Taylor to provide further information? Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Mayor. As you say, that the paper sets out a reminder of our reserves position and identifies that there is a proposal to rebase, in effect, our current reserve and refund £51 million to the 5 local authorities. So in these times of extreme financial pressure, I don't need to dwell on that. It's a very real issue that you're all dealing with as we speak. The reserve is there to meet our commitment to the local contribution to the West Yorkshire Plus Transport Fund, which was part of the original city deal in 2014. If you approve the refund today, then we will continue to put future top sizes of the transport levy into the reserve to build it back up again so that we can meet the commitment as we continue to deliver the transport fund in full over the coming years. Recommendations set out section 10. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This is not a position we wanted to find ourselves in, but has been forced upon us by the underfunding of local authorities over the last decade. Any comments or questions? No? Thank you so much. So the recommendations are that the Combined Authority considers the current financial position and that the Combined Authority approves the refund of transport levy reserves to the constituent local authorities as set out in paragraph 2.10 of this report. Are we happy to have those recommendations go through? Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, item 10, budget and business planning. This report provides an update to members on the new multi-year business planning approach adopted for 24-25 business planning period. You'll remember the really successful launch of the West Yorkshire Plan in June this year. A multi-year planning process has been implemented for the next business planning cycle to support setting out our role in contributing to the plan's 5 missions. This report sets out the approach that's been taken for members to note. And Angela, can you talk us through any further detail and answer any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As you say, this builds from the West Yorkshire Plan. It is very much about setting outcomes on a multi-year basis. We have previously been a bit more bottom-up in some of our outcome setting and done it on a shorter term. So this is trying to refine down the approach, the outcomes that we want to achieve. So we're currently working up the detailed outputs and activities that will come back to these meetings and the Finance Resources and Corporate Committee over the next few months as we progress through towards a business plan and budget for you to approve in February. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela, because the plan is not just for the shelf to gather dust, is it? It's a blueprint for how we deliver for 2040. Any comments? Yes. Councillor Scully.
Thank you, Tracy. Just a comment and observation, really, in terms of the graphic that's in the report. I couldn't decide whether it was a sort of very frightening sort of gymnastic horse box to jump over or actually a very solid structure. It's a house. It's actually a very solid structure. It's a house. And I just wanted to say that I hope as we go forward with these plans and review the outcomes, that actually this is as solid as this, this diagram looks, really, with the 6 of us, the 5 local authorities and yourself going together. And earlier you put pressure on the officers by saying, you know, best in Europe, mass transit plan and so on. And the pressure is on us, actually, to be the best combined authority that we can be in these difficult times.
Thank you, and I couldn't agree with that more, that we will deliver together, and it is the strength of our partnership that is unique, I think, in a combined authority, that we can understand and work very closely with each other to deliver on our shared ambitions for our partnership. So I'm really pleased with this work, and thank you for that comment, Jane. Any further comments? No, we're happy to note the approach that's implemented for the next business planning meeting. Thank you so much. Moving on to committee governance. This is to consider appointments to committees of the Combined Authority. If I could hand over to Caroline Allen to talk us through this.
Thank you, Chair. The report is hopefully self-explanatory on this basis. It's in relation to committee membership. The first proposal here is to appoint an advisory non-voting rep of the NHS West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board onto the Climate, Energy and Environment Committee. That proposal has come forward as a request by the committee itself, and we also already have an equivalent rep on our Place Committee, and the Climate Committee has felt that actually having that broadened input from that health perspective is really critical there. So the recommendation is for for an advisory rep to be appointed to that committee.
Should we take any questions or comments on that before we move on? Any comments on that? I do think getting closer to health is going to help us with our health inequality outcomes. And I'm very excited about YSAG as well, that we launched a few weeks ago. We can't solve the problems of West Yorkshire without including health. So I'm really pleased in this development. We're happy to recommend and approve. Yeah, thank you. Caroline.
Okay, thank you. The second one is in relation to the membership of the Finance, Resources and Corporate Committee. And the proposal here is to seek an additional independent member to that committee to bring experience and expertise in matters of corporate and financial performance and controls, to provide a valuable check and challenge and input and perspective to the work of that committee. So seeking the approval of the CA to go forward and to seek to recruit to that. We are proposing here a level of remuneration which is equivalent to that for our independent members on our Governance and Audit Committee. So the recommendation here is that remuneration be set at £1,000 a year, which is equivalent to a rate of £250 a day for 4 days' work.
Thank you. And I am proud here in West Yorkshire that we are open to scrutiny with our 3 scrutiny boards, and I do believe that somebody with the appropriate experience will help us have further scrutiny on this committee. Are we happy to approve that we go out to recruitment? Thank you. Caroline.
Thank you. And third and final one is Calderdale have proposed change in nomination for the Economy Scrutiny Committee and to replace Councillor John Ford on that committee with Councillor Peter Caffrey. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're happy to approve that change. Thank you so much. That draws the meeting to an end. We've rattled through substantive business. Thank you so much for your questions and for your challenge. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today and remind you of the next meeting, 7th of December 2023. And I'll formally close the meeting. Thank you all so much.